food, the traditional dry food that you see at big box stores and you see at the grocery store, we call death nuggets, basically. Cats are obligatory carnivores, and they need three simple things: meat, bones, and organs. We vote for, when you adopt a cat, adopt two. Get two. Always have a pair, that they should be able to go outside, that house cats can have indoor-outdoor privileges. No, no, and no. There's 25 things that are going to kill them outside. If you eat at McDonald's every day, you're not going to be that healthy. And that's the food at the grocery stores, basically McDonald's for cats. In here today, her cat tested positive for FIV, which is basically like AIDS in cats. But the cat can live very wonderfully in a household with other cats, because that's a disease that's only transferred with deep wound bites. Calicivirus, which is basically a respiratory thing, or they could have something as serious as FIP, which is basically a death sentence. They're high in carbohydrates, high in fillers. It's shocking to me sometimes when vets promote dry food because they kind of imply to the parents like, oh, cats need the crunch because it's going to break off the tartar and the plaque from their teeth. First of all, cats have a mouthful of fangs. They have no flat surface teeth. They have no molars. They can't grind dry food. If you take a cat off the street, let's say you rescue a cat off the street, you need to sequester it from the rest of your cats until it goes and gets tested. Because
this episode of the podcast is with a feline expert with a strong focus in cat health, nutrition, and the overall well-being of cats. If you're someone who is a cat parent or is thinking of becoming a cat parent, I highly encourage you to listen to this episode of the podcast.
First of all, they're beautiful to look at. There's so many different breeds of cats and mixed cats, and whether they're street cats or exotic cats, they're just beautiful to look at. They're also very clever, and so their antics are kind of fun to watch. And you hear about a lot of cat memes. You don't hear about a lot of dog memes, for example. And anyway, and they're smart. They're really smart.
Now, you've had a long career in fashion or retail. What inspired you to come over to the feline world, to the world of cats?
Well, it started when I adopted my black cat Laszlo, and he was over grooming. And so I went down the research rabbit hole of how to, fix this over being overly itchy, licky, scratchy, and everything came down to a food intolerance. And so when I went into the deep research of food intolerances and cats, everything pointed to changing the diet. And I started researching that more, and all arrows pointed to the raw food diet. And I completely became enamored with that concept because, after all, there was no cooking in the wild. When the cats are out there, they're eating a raw food diet. Even our cats that we, adopt off the streets, they are eating, a bird one day, a mouse the next day, some bugs in between. So I started to really focus on that, and I found where I could buy raw food. It was a 25-mile drive from me. And I put him on the raw food diet, and it cured him in 2 weeks' time, stopped being itchy, licky, scratchy. And I realized that it was incredible. His poop was reduced by 50%. Also, no odor in the house, no odor in the litter box. And I thought, wow, this is something I've got to share with the world. And so I was retiring out of fashion. I had a great career, but when it's over, it's over. And I was bored. And I was just totally fascinated by the fact how this food cured my cat. Many, as I said, intolerances, and also changed my life because all of a sudden, no litter box odor, less poop to scoop. So anyway, I started blogging. And in blogging, I discovered by meeting people that I really realized how underserved cats were. In the traditional pet stores, you go into a pet store and it's got, 3 aisles for the dogs and it's got 1 corner for the cats. And then I decided that I started volunteering for a rescue group. And But I'm a businesswoman, and the rescue groups that I was working on their fundraisers, and they're so busy trapping, feeding, fostering, whatever they're doing, that they can't decide if they want to have a pasta dinner fundraiser or an afternoon tea fundraiser. So I said, well, to heck with this. And I said, I'm going to open up an online store. I started with an online store, and I'm going to raise money for cat rescue through my sales. And then I went to a cat convention. It was 2017, and it was Cat Camp in New York, which was headed up by Jackson Galaxy, the cat daddy of all time, as well as uh, Meow Parlor, which was New York's first cat cafe. And I knew I had found my tribe, just walking amongst all those people that were fellow cat lovers. And I said to myself, I'm going to come back next year with a shop. And I did. In 2018. I launched at Cattsbury Cat Convention, and I launched at Meow Parlor, the 2018 event. And I started with an online store and doing the pop-ups and selling toys and treats and gifts for the cat lover. And I love retail. I love educating pet parents in this case, because they're very, as I said, underserved, and they've got lots of questions, and cats have plenty of issues that need addressing. And it just started to snowball. If COVID hadn't happened, I would have opened the store in 2020. But COVID stepped in the way. So, and as far as a business goes, and fashion retailing was great when it was great, but the pet industry is different. You know, at a time when another time and space in my life, I was passionate about clothing. But now I'm passionate about cats. And so I just felt that, what's different about the pet industry from the fashion industry? Well, it's an emotional tie. We love our pets. And the concept of having a pet store, a cat store, to me was like the ultimate, because I could fulfill, a joy of having a retail store. I could help my clients because I've been, I'm not a vet tech and I'm not a vet, but I know cats, and anybody that works for me knows cats. So we consider ourselves the voice of authority when it comes to cats, in a sense. And so I just knew that the pet industry, more important, the pet industry grows a steady 5 to 8% every single year. And the fashion industry could no longer say that, because it went through a lot of constrictions with the various recession times and stuff like that. But the pet industry has just continued to boom. So it's a good business idea, for one thing. And I'm also, my heart is being filled by being able to help pet parents.
I want to go back to the part where you mentioned a cat's diet. Why is a cat's diet so important? And what do you see common things that pet owners are maybe not doing right with when it comes to the diet of their cats?
Well, first of all, everybody needs to recognize, which I think they do, but I don't necessarily think that they believe it to the degree that it is true. Cats are obligatory carnivores, and they need 3 simple things: meat, bones, and organs. That's it. They don't need
no dry food. You're saying they don't need dry food.
Well, that we have freeze-dried food now.
Okay.
It's the raw food, because the raw food focuses on meat, bones, and organs. If you were feeding a dog, you'd also have the addition of some produce, fruits and veggies. Cats have a shorter digestive tract than a dog does, because in the end, you have to I'm going to jump around a little bit. You have to know that cats to this day are still 96% the same DNA as lions and tigers in the wild. So they think that they're a little lion living in your living room, basically. And so the produce doesn't hurt them. Like, my cats happen to love arugula. When I open up the arugula clamshell, they come running, but they just want some greens and some crunch. And I give it to them. It's perfectly fine. But a steady diet, or a diet that includes a lot of fruits and vegetables, let's say like the dog would have, the cat's digestive tract is shorter, and they don't gain all the nutrients and the vitamins and minerals out of that produce. So basically, we kind of eliminate the produce concept, and we focus on meat, bones, and organs, which is, they have to have the organ meat, because the organ meat has the taurine. the taurine is their essential amino acid that if they don't have it, they die. So first of all, we vote for it being, we say raw is the way to go. But we have great quality canned wet food, which has got high moisture content. We do carry in the raw category the freeze-dried food, which is the same as the food in the freezer that was flash frozen. In the case of freeze-dried, it goes into a chamber and gets evaporated, but it's still raw. And so dry food, the traditional dry food that you see at big box stores and you see at the grocery store, we call death nuggets, basically, because they have no nutritional value for a cat in a sense. They're high in carbohydrates, high in fillers. It's shocking to me sometimes when vets promote dry food because they kind of imply to the parents like, oh, cats need the crunch because it's going to break off the tartar and the plaque from their teeth. First of all, cats have a mouthful of fangs. They have no flat surface teeth. They have no molars. They can't grind dry food. So we do have dry food in the store, but it's made by small, what do I want to say, organic companies, and they have very high protein levels, at least 40–45% whole muscle meat protein. And then the rest of what's in there is the bones and the organ meat, and they might have, and then they'll have, flaxseed or what do I want to say, coconut oil, various other kind of little, goat's milk in it. Goat's milk, as I'm seeing in a lot of the better dry foods now. So the biggest thing is I have customers. Oh, here's another thing. Customers often will tell me, oh, my cat doesn't like fish. It only likes chicken. How old's your cat? 8 years old. Are you telling me it's only been eating chicken for 8 years? Yes. And I'm like, I try to like hold my thoughts for a moment and say, okay, how can I work this into the conversation? Variety is the spice of life. They need a rotation of proteins. So I think that's something that cat parents don't always understand, that concept, in the sense of, but the raw food, in our opinion, is the best diet. It's the healing diet.
Are there foods that cats should stay away from?
Yes. Traditional dry food.
Dry food, okay.
Dry food, in our opinion, because of the reasons I just explained. You need to, I would say it's the dry food. I think that pretty much they should have a wide range of proteins. So there's nothing there that they can't have. I would say it's not a food, but it's very, very important. Cats are notoriously dehydrated, and they need water. And a lot of people tell me my cats drink a lot of water. And I go, oh, really? I said, do you know that the cat has to lap 2,000 times to get a quarter cup of water? And that really shocks cat parents a lot because they're convinced that their cats are drinking a lot of water. But I add water to my cat's food to deal with that dehydration problem. And my cats get two-thirds to three-quarters of a cup of water a day in their food.
Earlier that cats are such smart and intelligent animals, but I feel like sometimes they get a bad rep. Why is that they get a bad rep?
Well, okay, first of all, you have to think about who domesticated who. 40,000 years ago, a caveman took a friendly wolf and taught him and domesticated him and taught him to provide security and also maybe a working dog, to help with, hauling something or whatever. Cats came on the scene probably 10,000 years ago, but cats domesticated themselves. And how that happened was when we went from hunters and gatherers to agricultural, and we started to grow our own food, which was about 8,000, 10,000 years ago. Cats were already roaming the earth, but they started to come around and found a food source because we were growing grain. They found mice. And so cats figured out if they hung around with humans, they'd have a constant food source. And then maybe they could provide a job by being rodent management. But they also appeared to be very independent. And I think that's the rap that cats get. that people don't get them because they don't behave like a dog. They can behave very independent, even aloof, and they give you affection when they want to, and it's not on demand necessarily. And I think also you have to remember, or maybe you don't know, but in the Dark Ages, when the Black Plague was going around, a lot of people started to associate cats, particularly black cats, with these women that were not getting the plague, apparently. And so then they started to call them witches because they must have some magical thing that they were not getting sick with the plague and dying, but they always had cats around them. And then Pope Pius the Ninth came out somewhere in the 13th, 14th century and said that the black cats were the witches' familiar. So, for instance, black cats have been out of favor with the older generations. Now it's dying off completely. Black cats have become a cult and people adore them. And I've met one family told me they had 7 black cats. I said, how do you tell them apart? But anyway, so I think that's why and cats can behave aloof. They can, you could be sitting and petting them and all of a sudden they get up and leave you because they saw something else that attracted their attention and they wanted to go investigate. So I think that's why. I think the superstitions of the black cats coupled with just the way, cats can be sometimes, people said, oh, well, I'm going to go get a dog. The dog will, kiss my toes. And we like to laughingly say, oh, yeah, well, that's because dogs have masters and cats have staff. So,
well, that's what inspired me to ask that question because my good friend, he has a cat, and when I go over there, and I'll pet his cat, and it'll come up to me and kind of give me attention for like 5 seconds, and then as I'm petting it, it'll like go ahead and scratch me, and it's like, and I'll turn around and like give some sort of attitude and walk away. So I was like, hey, that is rude. But it's a lovely cat.
Yeah. Sometimes also there are cats that if you pet them too much, they get overstimulated and their response is to turn around and go, so yeah. Like my black cat is that way. Laszlo's that way. I can pet him, but the 4th or 5th pet, he's like, okay, I've had enough, kind of thing. So don't take it personally.
I didn't. I had the pleasure of babysitting him for a week, and it was a lot of fun. We became pretty good friends since.
Good. You're warming up to getting your own cat.
This question is, there's inbreeding that happens within dogs. Is there inbreeding that can happen within cats?
Well, not inbreeding per se. I mean, certainly if in some hoarding situations where cats were not fixed, neutered and spayed, and you had brothers and siblings, making babies and things like that, there can be issues there, of course. But because that doesn't happen so often, we will like take that away. So inbreeding in cats.
I should have said crossbreeding. Sorry, not inbreeding, crossbreeding between cats.
You mean like, oh yeah, I know what you mean. You mean like the way you get a golden doodle, or that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, yes.
I've seen a golden retriever with a poodle, for example. Okay. Well, I'll tell you how that happens in the cat world. First of all, out in the wild, there are cats that obviously mate and then create mixed whatevers. Okay, but it's not necessarily always because they're going to produce a new breed. However, like I inherited a Sphinx cat, and he's a Canadian Sphinx, and the Canadian Sphinx they all started as a mutation. It was an accident. The cat was born hairless, and they would find another mutation, another cat that maybe had only a little bit of hair on its tail or on its ears or something like that, and would start breeding them that way. But the Canadian Sphinx specifically was a bred of a Donskoy from Russia, and I believe a Peterbald. So that's where they took 2 breeds, and had them mate. They were exotic breeds and had them mate to create a Sphinx. So they do like what we were saying in the dogs. There's some of that going on to create a new breed.
There are also some common myths about cats, like they're entirely independent. Can you maybe debunk some of these myths?
Well, first of all, the one I really dislike is the one that a single cat is fine alone. A single cat is fine. Doesn't need a playmate, doesn't need another cat. It's okay that you work 12 hours a day, blah, 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 blah. That is a complete, let me say this. There's a, excuse me, a handful of cats, 5% maybe, that want to be the only, the queen of her home or the king of his castle. It's a rarer thing. So cats are basically social. They're social creatures. The only time that they like to be alone is they hunt alone. And how do you do that? How do you translate that to today's times? My cats, I have three of them. They're all fed in different locations. So everybody has mealtime security. They're not looking over their shoulder to see if someone's coming to steal their food. And there's generally in a multiple cat household, you've got some bullies. So we vote for when you adopt a cat, adopt two. Get two. Always have a pair. It's going to cost you a little more money in food, an extra vet visit. So that's one. Two, that they should be able to go outside, that house cats can have indoor outdoor privileges. No, no, and no. There's 25 things that are going to kill them outside, ranging from getting hit by a car, getting kidnapped and sold to a laboratory that does testing on animals, to kittens get picked up by people that feed them to their snakes. Adult cats get picked up and they're used as bait in dog fighting contests. My mother, may she rest in peace, she believed her cats should go indoors and out, and she lost five cats to the coyotes of San Diego. And we finally took away her cat parenting privileges and told her, Mom, you can't have any more cats because you don't get it. She was old fashioned and she believed cats have to go outside. No, they don't. You make sure your house is enriched with toys and things that the cats can play with. We have lots of toys here the cats can play with by themselves, if that's the case, or with their friend, the other cat. And the other thing is that, as I mentioned before, pet parents are or people are convinced that their cats drink a lot of water on their own, and they don't. They don't get enough.
So, assuming people took that advice and said, okay, if I were to get a cat, and I'm going to make sure it stays inside.
Yes.
Before they decide to even get a cat, what are some things they should consider?
Well, they should consider that if you're going to get a cat, you absolutely should get two, because if you work long hours, you cannot leave that cat alone. That cat will get lonely and bored. That single cat will get lonely and bored. So that's something they have to think about their lifestyle. Also, they should realize that you just can't put out a big bowl of dry food and figure that, okay, the cat's getting all this nutritional stuff. You have to commit to a healthy diet. Yeah, sure, we'd love it to be raw, but we're also good with high quality canned food. So as long as it's wet, they need wet food. If they like a little crunch, I mix in some of the freeze dried with my wet food, and that gives them the little crunch that they want. And also, when I get home, they get a couple crunchy treats. So the point is you need to focus on their diet. They're carnivores. You need to realize that 95% of the time they need a buddy. So you got to get two. It'll be easier on you. Cats don't like to travel. Cats don't travel well. So don't think you're taking your cat on every trip, that you're doing, and your cat's going to go out to California on your trip home for Thanksgiving, or your cat's going to go to Long Island to your summer house. Well, that'll be okay because you're there, and But the idea is that they need to really recognize that it's a lifetime commitment. Cats today are living to be 18, 20 years, 22 years old. Elizabeth Cook, our lead trapper here in Jersey City Heights, she had a cat that lived to be 28. The oldest cat in the world, documented by Guinness Book of Records, lived to be 38. Obviously rare, but more and more cats today are living. They come in the store, I hear them 18, 19, 20. So it's a commitment. And this is not a toy. You're adopting, and then like 3 months later, or we hear a lot of, somebody gets married, the person's allergic, It's them or the cat. We hear things like that sometimes. Your cat is your baby. Your cat is and you are its person. Cats get surrendered for the craziest reasons, you know. And so to us, it's like you really got to think this is a lifetime commitment. You've got to give them great food to keep them healthy and cut down on your vet bills long term because dogs are getting diabetes, uh, cancer. They're getting all the human diseases that we get because they are not eating a good diet, let's say, or they're not getting enough water and they're getting kidney problems or stones in the bladder. I mean, there's all sorts of things that you do need to consider. But they give you so much love back. How can you refuse them?
I want to go back to some of the myths about cats. Someone asked me, "Hey, do cats?" When you meet with Sherry, can you ask her, "Do cats see in black and white, or is it color?"
No, they are essentially colorblind, but it's more shades of gray and things like that.
Okay.
And I'm not a vet, but this is what I've understood from vets who have studied this and articles that I've read.
Okay. So let's say if someone comes into your store and they, let's say, have a cat. What are some of the common questions you see them asking you? What are some of the common struggles they have with their cats?
Probably the biggest thing I hear, and I mean daily, is my cat so picky. That is a huge one. That I hear from probably 50% of the clients. 50% will tell you my cat eats anything. I have 3 cats. They eat anything. They are, great that way. So I hear my cat's picky. So that's one. And when we drill down on that, it's generally because the cat is eating the same protein. There's no protein rotation. It's either all dry food or maybe it's got some wet thrown in there. But my cat is picky. So we stress to them, you must rotate proteins. My cats get a choice of 4 proteins, 5 proteins. They get beef, pork, turkey, some rabbit, some lamb. I don't serve chicken because I've always felt that, and chicken is technically, as I said early on, when I was explaining Laszlo's situation, chicken is usually 50% of any intolerances. So I just sort of cut chicken out. But what else what was what was the rest of that question? Did I answer it correctly?
No,
Oh,
that was
yeah,
a great answer.
parent. But
What are some of
parent,
the common questions that the parents come in uh, when they have cats? And you said they're picky.
picky.
Yeah.
That's one. Okay, then the others are they've already been diagnosed with issues. So that could be digestive, could be IBD, IBS. They're throwing up, and we have solutions. We have solution diets that are not like those fake prescription diets, which actually have no medicine in them, and therefore, why do they cost so much? And now the pet industry has pushed back against all those fake prescription diets, and they're coming up with all the formulations at affordable prices to combat kidney, urinary, digestive issues, hips and joints, aging cats, arthritic cats. We've had 2 or 3 customers come to us with diabetic cats. And what's the food for that? So solutions. Pet parents are looking for solutions to health issues.
How do you get them to rotate off of some of their behavior? So let's say the first example you gave was their cat, cat parents will come in and say, "Hey, my cat is picky." Well, then you identify for them that, hey, it's because you've had them on this diet for X amount of years. How do you start to now rotate them off that? Is there a cycle that you try with the parents?
What we recommend is buying 1 can of a selection of brands and proteins. So maybe we send them home that day with 4 or 5, 6 cans of different food. Every can is a different thing, okay, different protein. And then what we recommend they do is they treat those cans like treats. Don't say to your cat, "Oh, here was your usual morning breakfast, but now tonight we've got you a new dinner." Because cats are known as imprint eaters. And when they repetitively eat a lot of the same food, the food imprints on them and they imprint on it. So when you all of a sudden do a switcheroo on them, they're going to look at that food. That's my freezer going in the background. They're going to immediately look at that food and go, hey, that's not my food. I don't recognize that as my food. So we suggest you take that little can of food and you dump it into a Tupperware container and you serve it with a teaspoon as a treat, not at mealtime. So you're giving it to them maybe when you first wake up in the morning before you feed them, or you're giving it to them before you go to sleep at night or in the middle of the day. It depends if you work from home or, what your schedule is as well. And so we start slowly, and you have to have patience. The single biggest thing is transitioning a cat to new food. Now, some cats, like my three at home, they're food hounds. They're going to try anything. Okay. So I don't worry about them, but I sympathize with people that don't have those kinds of cats that are food hounds and will eat anything. And thankfully, pretty much 50% of the rest of my customers tell me the same thing. My cat will eat anything. So, but the picky ones or the ones that have been on the single protein all this time are a little more challenging. So we start slow. And sometimes you're going to take 2 steps back before you can take 1 step ahead. And we always suggest if you're going to put it in with your old food, put it on the bottom, put the old food on top of it, because they're going to start munching on the old food. And then, they might stop at the new food, but within 2 or 3 days of serving like that, they're going to drill down and eat the new food too. And Christina that works with me, she's got 7 cats and she just transitioned them all to a wet food and raw food diet. And happened, but some of her cats transitioned in like a week or 2, and a couple of her cats, the females, were the holdouts, and they took 2 months to convert. But you got to have patience. I find a lot of pet parents, I don't mean to say they don't have patience, but I think it's because they really don't understand the cat's psychic about their food. So they get, they throw in the towel too soon. I tried that food. My cat didn't like it. You did? Or I tried raw and he didn't like raw. He prefers his dry food kind of thing. So, but we work with them and we say a little raw is better than no raw.
That was a lot of fun. Is there anything else you would like to add about cats that maybe I'm missing that I did not get to ask you in my questions?
I think that we've addressed a lot. I do think that we could, talk about, I touched on the idea of diseases that cats can get. And certainly when cats, are rescued from the streets, there's a lot of very bad diseases that they could have. And that's why if you take a cat off the street, let's say you rescue a cat off the street, you need to sequester it from the rest of your cats until it goes and gets tested. Because they could have something as simple as the calicivirus, which is basically a respiratory thing, or they could have something as serious as FIP, which is basically a death sentence. And however, there's great news on that front, because the cure-all for FIP is basically remdesivir, which came out during COVID, and it's a human drug, and the FDA would not approve it for animals. And so people that adopted a cat that turned out testing positive for FIP had to go underground to what was called FIP warriors. And it was a secret society of people that could get the medicine. And it was injections. And you had to inject your cat with this serum for 83 days. 83 days having to, poke your cat. And it cost a fortune, like about $18,000. But now, with a lot of thanks to a lot of people working hard on it, and the kitten lady, Hannah Shaw, who is the world's leading neonatal kitten specialist, who raises money through grants all the time. And she's worked with UC Davis a lot, where they've been working on this one disease, for example. And now the FDA has approved it, and vets can, give a prescription to it. Prices have come way down, but I had a cat parent in here today. Her cat tested positive for FIV, which is basically like AIDS in cats. But the cat can live very wonderfully in a household with other cats, because that's a disease that's only transferred with deep wound bites, where the other one that I just was describing could be airborne, or, be just when the cat is shedding, what we call shedding the cells, or shedding the spores of the disease. So it's a good thing to, as I said, if you adopt a cat or you take a cat off the streets yourself, sequester it until you get it to the vet, so then it can get snap tested. And so there are some, and and as I said earlier, they get all of our diseases too from bad food. Basically, we are what we eat. They are what they eat. Like cancer, diabetes, obesity. If you eat at McDonald's every day, you're not going to be that healthy. And that's the food at the grocery stores, basically McDonald's for cats.
So it's really important to make sure your cat has a healthy diet, just like we do.
It's number 1, 2, and 3. I mean, there's no option on that.
Sherry, where can people find you and your work?
Find me?
Yes.
You can find me at Meow Mini Mart in Jersey City Heights every day but Monday.
Amazing. I will link all your information in the description of the video. Sherry, thank you for coming on the pod. This was a lot of fun.